Hi, I'm Mike Schopp, excited and honored to be stepping in with Pat Kerrane, Davis Maddock today to continue the long, proud, checkered history of ADP chasing. Checkered is probably not fair. This is one of my very favorite shows, Mad Men, West Wing, 6 Feet Under. I'm 53. Give me a break, all right? These are my favorite shows. I cannot wait to talk Week 11. Anthony Richardson, Brock Bowers, Taysom Hill. I'm Mike with Pat and Davis. This is ADP Chasing for November 18th, 2024.
Pat Fryer Helmuth.
ADP Chasing is for when you watch Ship Chasing, you go, these guys are just football guys.
And the targets per outrun leagues, that's going to be really nice.
Actually back in if it's Ashane.
Stare into our crystal ball. Close your eyes, all your entries are going to lose anyway.
Yeah. That's fair.
This is a Deuce Vaughn show.
It's anti-cabal. It's anti the best ball thought leaders. I'm obviously lying to some degree because, I have a lot of both of these guys.
It's the most disgusting pick you can make. But, man.
All right. So, for the record, that was me, not Mike, who played the wrong clip there. That's it's not the new guy.
Pat Fryer Helmuth. I just heard Pat Fryer Helmuth, and I was like, all right. My favorite show's starting.
I think the real reason I'm here is because I think Tee Higgins is good. I feel
that's true. Yeah, we had
Big Chasing stepped in and had enough of the slander. No, I mean I have enjoyed watching you guys and Sam for a long time, and I just hope we can keep it humming. So thank you for having me.
Of course, yeah. Welcome aboard. We're psyched.
We're happy to have you. If you were not here, this would have been 2 hours of Kerrane and I sort of listlessly drifting from topic to topic. We probably would have done 45 minutes.
Listlessly.
Listlessly,
listless.
No, rudderlessly, not listlessly,
yeah.
Rudderlessly. Yeah. We would have probably spent 45 minutes on Daniel Jones this morning. We would have
we don't have any direction doesn't mean we don't hit the power sometimes.
Correct. We would have gone deep into, Daniel Jones. Who is Daniel Jones' offensive coordinator? We would have gotten into why did they take him over Justin Herbert? It would have been a fun thought experiment.
Honestly, I would have loved it. I mean, if that had happened, I don't know how many minutes you do want to spend on that. But I would like to actually say, not entirely a joke. I think, it's funny that Tee Higgins went, wide receiver 2 for the week last night. I mean, can I just sort of try to ingratiate myself, sort of get into the flow here by asking what we think he really is? I mean, the Bengals, Davis, I saw you tweeting about them this morning, their schedule, but it's 4-7 now, right? What you wonder about the incentives when it comes to Cincinnati, the players, and then just the team. At the same time, I thought last night there was an excitement, the comeback and everything that had happened, but also a little bit of a melancholy vibe with Cincinnati. I don't know. I mean, are we going to be able to trust the Bengals down the stretch?
I mean, I'll tell you this right now. They lose that Week 12 game to the Steelers, and you have big Jamar Chase, Joe Burrow, Tee Higgins positions. It's over for you because they are not getting there. But if they win that game, I would argue the Bengals might be who you need because every single game is going to be a playoff game. I mean, dude, Chase Brown is getting 28 touches a game. That might be less. It might be less than 28 touches a game. There's no try and keep the offense on schedule. It's all we got to get touchdowns, and we got to get touchdowns right now. Lou Amorano, by the way, it's not really a topic for this show. Lou Amorano was supposed to be a head coach candidate 18 months ago. He beat, Burrowhead beats the Chiefs in Arrowhead. Yeah. I mean,
but it was always ridiculous. Even the narratives last year on Anarumo were he does all this, he takes all the top guy away. It's their defense wasn't that good. It's we're bending over backwards to kind of praise this guy when the numbers don't really support that they have an elite defense at all.
You know who this year's version of Lou Anarumo is? It's Aaron Glenn. Because Sunday Night Football, didn't Collinsworth say this a couple of weeks ago? Wait till you see the line out the door for teams wanting to interview him. Detroit's defensive coordinator. Mm-hmm. Really? Is that what you would do? I watched our Bills, too soon, get taken down by Cincinnati in the playoffs, and everybody couldn't wait to tell you how qualified and excellent a candidate Anarumo We got it now. Is, and no disrespect, right? Like in Buffalo, we're arguing all the time this team never loses, and we're arguing all the time about Sean McDermott's, quality and value as a head coach. So I don't know, maybe it'll turn the other way. It usually does in football, but do we want the new good team's defensive coordinator to be our bad team's future? I don't think I do.
It's such a tough spot to be in to have a defensive. You have to have
You have to have Dan Campbell. Where else does it work?
Dude, he's not defensive. That's the thing about Dan Campbell. He's got the ethos.
He was a tight end.
He was a tight end. He came up under Peyton. He's an offensive mind. He seems so thoroughly like a defensive guy, but he's an offensive mind. So, I mean, there really aren't that many examples where you're like psyched. I mean, Belichick is basically the one guy.
Harbaugh for
Harbaugh's
special teams.
It's going to end up not working.
Though. Is he defensive?
John Harbaugh was a special teams coach.
He was special teams. Which it was the same idea. So that's a good example.
But I guess what I mean by defensive head coaches, I mean the CEO style, where you are leaving the offense to someone else. Because the issue you run into when you leave an offense to someone else, I mean, look, the Lions better win the Super Bowl this year because Ben Johnson is not sticking around again. I don't think. I think Ben Johnson wants to have his own team. He wants to make his money. And they're going to promote someone from within probably, but can you recapture that? Yeah, Tomlin obviously is a good example of this, although Tomlin, would I want to sign up for my team being a Tomlin team? I don't know.
Would you want to sign up for that right now? Would you want to sign up for that right now, even at whatever they are, first place?
Right. No, I don't think that would.
10 games.
And Tomlin's a really good coach, but I think you have, I don't know. You're kind of stuck in this spot where unless you have like a Hall of Fame quarterback, it's like tough to see how you're going to be like a really, really, really strong team. Because Jared Goff is not that great, he's playing out of his mind, but I chalk a lot of that up to situation, partly because we've already seen this before with McVay. Like if you put everything around him and it's all in place, then he can. I've actually been experimenting. I've been looking at like yards when the quarterback didn't leave the pocket from when you're throwing 3 seconds or later, just seeing seasons there. Goff is absolutely smashing with those types of throws. One of the other big seasons was Goff in 2018, and one of the other big seasons was Matthew Stafford in 2021. Both were the peak.
Yeah, that makes such sense.
Yeah, and so it's not to say that Goff isn't playing really well. He's playing awesome, but like he's being supported by a team in a way that, if the situation were to get a little worse, I think he would be exposed, as we've seen throughout his career. He can get exposed. So I guess my point is that there is real value in one of these coaches that can build one of those systems. Because if you can build a system like that, you can get Super Bowl level play out of these quarterbacks that, aren't going to lead you to a Super Bowl just on the weight of their own talent.
Well, right. I mean, think about Buffalo all the time for this. We had 17 years in a row here without a playoff team, like a record stuff. I always wanted, you're going to make the quarterback pick in the first round. You want it to align with the head coach. Didn't Davis, maybe you point out how Chicago 3 times in a row?
I mean, it's like Chicago is like the best example of this. Like they already are having to press the reset button. It's week 11.
Yeah. So you had Trubisky went in, John Fox was there and then fired, and you had Fields go in and Nagy was there and then fired. And now you have this situation and the coach will be fired. It didn't happen actually that way for Buffalo, which I know you'll know, like they traded McDermott's first ever draft pick to the Chiefs for Mahomes. Like that was the Mahomes pick. But the Bills, I guess this is a fun debate. Did they get away with it by drafting Josh Allen the next year? That Bills Chiefs just continues to it's so much fun. It's so interesting. I don't know. Like I talk the Bills every day.
So you're feeling good about Bills Chiefs right now?
Today, better than yesterday at this time. But yeah. I don't know really, apart past Josh Allen, obviously, and defensively, they're always able to come up with new ways, it seems, to confuse or to win. past that, what are they good at? You know, like what is Shakir as a fantasy asset?
McDermott is a great example of it because he clearly is a bad coach. I think the guys like him, and I think they play for him. And I think the Bills would already have won Super Bowl if,
yeah,
you know, right. I don't know, like if Dan Campbell, or let's not even go Dan Campbell. Let's go pre-downfall Doug Peterson or someone who kind of just gets. No, that's probably I'm having trouble
low.
Coming up.
He's above Doug, but yeah, how crazy is it that Campbell might be the best coach in the league? Remember how much the kneecap we were all like beside ourselves.
He's not Andy, and I know this is going to be unpopular to do today. It is Andy Reid, but Andy also I think is very complacent right now. Everyone with the Chiefs is just very complacent right now. No one's really like I feel like it's neither here nor there, but McDermott takes points off the table all the time. He does. Yeah. Like, Mike, have you ever forgiven him for the Damar Hamlin Make-A-Wish moment of the fake punt? I mean, that's the worst decision a coach has made in a playoff game in my memory. Like, it's just you have Josh Allen, man. You've got Josh Allen. You don't need to run a fake punt.
Well, you know, he's still kicking. There's something like 57-20 in their last 77 regular season games. And I think McDermott, I think he has improved. I know that was last year, so maybe this is tough to hear, but like yesterday, a couple of big plays in that game were 4th down plays and they were successful. Yeah. And if you look up his data, he does a lot of that. Like,
do you think he does the 4th down plays if it's a playoff game though?
Well, last year they did what you said. So I don't know. That's, I think, the overall lesson. I mean, I've been on this train for many, many years, how teams have been wrong when it comes to that stuff. They've gotten a lot better at it. And I think, you know, he's not what Andy Reid was when he was the Eagles coach.
Yeah, like, Andy Reid used to be terrible at this stuff.
Andy Reid was awful.
And the clock management. It was that. Yeah. Plus, he would just like, you'd be like,
Andy, by the way, Andy messed the clock up yesterday too, by the way.
He still, I think they've been so good that we forget. I don't know that he ever got better with the clock management. It just kind of doesn't matter as much.
Well, how about it ends up being totally forgotten, but against the Broncos, you got to let him score. You have to let them score. And Andy's just kind of hanging out. He's calling his plays in. He's I don't know. I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe they did not let Estime score there at the end in the fourth quarter when you clearly need to do that. I mean, they kicked the field goal with 0 seconds left on the clock. Your win condition is 0 unless you let them score. Yeah.
Davis, what do you think? What do you think happens in the AFC from here on?
Oh, the Bills are going to get the 1 seed now. Now that they've lost one, you know, we're talking. Oh yeah. Now, like you think the Chiefs were just hanging out before, buddy? Like, what do you think is going to happen now? Now that they don't have to deal with the concept of having a perfect season, they might end up being the 4 seed. I guess
don't they want the 1 seed? I don't understand why they would just coast.
Well, they're not very good, man. They're like Juju Smith-Schuster got.
I know, but they might have to start trying a little more, you know.
Juju Smith-Schuster got the ball on a key 3rd down. Juju Smith-Schuster, man, he got the ball on a 3rd and 8. He did convert it.
He made it,
which is
right. It felt a little like they were doing some worthy stuff yesterday. They're trying to like.
Well, you know. But he got benched after because obviously I'm watching this stuff very closely. He catches the 50-yard bomb, has no idea where the
intentionally didn't get in bounds there, right? He slows up. He did it perfectly.
It was Jonathan Mingo. It was Jonathan Mingo.
It's Mingo-esque, yeah.
Why is Mahomes putting that ball so close to the sideline? There's no one there. Like, wouldn't you just sort of?
Well, he's so. I mean, that's really no one wants to talk about it. But his deep balls have been brutal. I mean, he's been awful. He is as messed up. That's the 3rd one this year that was a worthy touchdown where he put it in the wrong. No, 4th one this year where he put it in the wrong spot. Yeah, he's been awful, man. He's been really, really bad. This is the worst he's ever played. This is worse than like
his deep ball percentage is also crazy low. Like he's rarely taking those shots. So when he misses them, it really hurts. He was at 5% heading into the week.
That's kind of Allen too. It's funny, like that isn't happening at all. When I say, like, what are they good at? I mean, that's respectful because I know they're 9-2, the Bills, and that's a great day for them yesterday. But really, like, what Amari Cooper had a couple of kind of moonball catches in this game. Shakir gives you the same 7 for 70, whatever ish every week without a touchdown. I don't know. For fantasy, like, they're sort of the Packers plus, where obviously you have Allen. That's sort of a different subject, different category, and Cook. But what you do with their passing game, Kincaid misses the game. I kind of think, nothing against the player, but that's one where I think it's probably a little bit smoother, less complicated for the Bills.
Well, because they feel bad that they drafted Dalton Kincaid. So 3 times a game they draw up a Kincaid play, and he will, like, you know, that infomercial gif of the guy who's got his arms full and he's falling over and water's going everywhere. That is Kincaid on these plays. It's like he just is. Would you rather have Noah Gray or Dalton Kincaid?
Well, I think I'd
draft Noah Gray.
I'd rather have Noah Gray because I didn't draft him in the first round. I think this is actually like a sneaky downside of spending a first round pick on a tight end, because if you spend a first round pick on a bad wide receiver, if you spend a first round pick on Jahan Dotson, right, the first year it looks okay, and then the next year you're like, no.
Yeah.
But pretty quickly he's just like, we're not playing this guy anymore because he's a wide receiver. You got a bunch of them,
or you can rotate them. Like, it doesn't become
you can find a little package. Yeah, but with a tight end, he's still going to be the best pass catching tight end that you have, most likely. So you're kind of stuck just rolling him out there.
That's such a good point. By the way, someone asked for the data on the deep passing stuff. I'm pulling it up right now.
It's 5%. Mahomes has the lowest deep pass rate in the league among all.
What's deep? 20 yards?
20 yards.
20 plus yards. Yeah, this is per NFL Next Gen. Second lowest is Aaron Rodgers, then Mayfield, then Tua, then Minshew. I mean, this is,
that's a club you don't want to be in, right?
No,
there.
I believe
Josh Allen's 8th. He's at 12%. He's still attacking. He's right behind Will Levis and ahead of Justin Fields and ahead of Jameis. So he's still attacking deep.
You're talking about percentage of plays that travel 20 yards through the air, or
percentage of dropbacks.
Okay.
Percentage of dropbacks on which you have a 20 plus yard pass.
And I hate to be diplomatic here on the show, because
might be percentage of attempts. I'm not sure.
It's not good radio, but the Chiefs and the Bills both won the Worthy-Coleman swap where they got the better fit for their quarterback. Now, Worthy's been awful. Like, before yesterday, I was ready to, like, I really, in my head, I was like, this guy's just McCole Hardman, where, like, he can't be on a football field. He does not have the attention to detail or anything like that. I feel a little bit better yesterday, which is very funny, given that he did another horrible attention to detail.
Yeah.
But Coleman's just a way better fit. Worthy would get 6 snaps a game for the Bills. He'd be Deontay Hardy. There'd be no point in him. And Coleman wouldn't get the ball in Kansas City either.
Is he like Philip Dorsett? Like, I'm trying to think of
No. What he's got to do is he's got to put on some weight. He's gonna have to sacrifice some speed and put on some weight. Although he did get crunched by the 2 Bills safeties on his first catch yesterday and pop back up, where I was ready for, like, the stretchers to come out, and he got back up, and I was like, wow. All right. Yeah, but Mahomes would not throw Keon Coleman the ball. You think Mahomes is throwing rookies 50-50 balls, dude? Not a chance in hell, dude. He would be Justin Watson on Kansas City.
Quick thought on McConkey, who was the player I wanted here on the Friday when we had all day.
Both of these teams would have been better off with Ladd.
Did they each have a little bit more of an overlap there with Rice or with Shakir? I don't know. But
Ladd played 79% of his snaps on the outside. He just is a great player. He's a really,
I think Ladd would be
player.
Perfect with the Chiefs. Like, that's kind of exactly what this version of Mahomes wants.
And
I guess he's kind of Rice-ish, but still.
You could play him on the outside though. I mean, the Bills and the Chiefs both have a wide receiver who doesn't earn targets. They have Matt Collins and they have Justin Watson, who plays all these snaps. And I mean, honestly, I guess Hollins the last 2 weeks has gotten targets, but like they just are. It is kind of crazy of an offensive philosophy to try and play 10 on 11. Isn't that great? Like, both of these teams are just kind of being like, you got to stick out one corner on this guy, but he's never getting the ball.
That sucks too, to have Watson when you have Worthy, because Worthy should be that guy. that where you're just like, we're going to sacrifice.
This all comes back to the sliding glass doors of why I'm having a bad fantasy season, which is Hollywood injuring his shoulder on the first play of the season in preseason. I mean,
Rice staying healthy would be huge.
Would have been imagine
DeAndre. I would even go so far as to say it more important than Hollywood Brown if Rice stays healthy.
Oh, sure.
For my first day, I mean, it was like my first day ever in radio. I wrote up all these ideas and topics. Now I understand. This show goes 2 hours because none of them has come up yet. But that's cool. It's fun. It's good. It's good. Good content.
Yeah, Anthony, let's get to a topic. That'd be good.
I'm ready for one. I cannot wait to be able to talk about Anthony Richardson. And I've got a question at the end of this. Absolutely stellar return out of nowhere. Like last week at this time, we were cutting him in the FFPC.
Joe's our quarterback this time last week.
Last Monday. The game could not have gone much better for the many Richardson believers. 270 passing yards, win on the road, last minute drive where you needed the touchdown, and you got it on one of two absolute truck stick runs by the quarterback. Is he going to play? Think of the preseason. Is he going to play this year carefully to not get hurt? Do the Colts want to do that? They kind of did. And, he goes from tapping out, creating all the conversation that we got after that, to running over people in the end zone with the game on the line. I mean, I think I'm almost all the way back to preseason vibes on him, which is, okay, that question was kind of answered yesterday. My question is, I wonder if either of you would give the Colts any credit at all for what has happened here in the last 2-3 weeks.
Zero. If they win either of those games with Flacco in there, it's still Flacco. Flacco doesn't play so bad, it's still him.
I would also say that based on Mike's feelings here, this is a good day to go try and sell Anthony Richardson.
You could get a 2025 first for him today.
It's time. Remember, if any crypto enthusiast, any situation where you've gone, if you just gave me one day with this sell window, I would sell. And then it comes and you go, wow, now we're going back up. You're not going back up. I don't think we're going back up with Anthony Richardson. I think this is the light here. This is the one day where you've got to make a move. Not to say it's all going to come
literally down. The one day. Like this is the day.
It might not come crashing down right away, but we know he's a volatile quarterback.
Do you know who the Colts play next week?
I do, Detroit.
You got like 4 days, dude.
Detroit honestly isn't the worst situation because you have to pass against them.
But you get down 14 points from the jump, and then you just have to drop back.
There were great throws yesterday. I mean, he made great throws. You can see the arm talent, the timing was good. Do you know who they play after Detroit? It goes like this: New England, Denver. All right, not easy, but that's the team they're right next to in the playoff picture. Tennessee, Giants, Jacksonville. That's the rest of the way for the Colts. I mean, that's probably 3-4 more wins. They stay in it, and I don't know what that means necessarily to his trade value, like you guys are talking, but I'm just so glad it happened because the Colts were a pathetic, miserable situation with Flacco in there. At least, however it happened, they got to Richardson. They told the story about his practice habits. I don't know. I mean, I don't want to give him any credit either, but it's the right
Anthony
result.
Richardson. I have a decent amount of Anthony Richardson in best ball, and somehow some of those teams are still alive. So for that purpose, I'm excited. Give me frankly playing time. That's great. I didn't think I was getting that anymore. So that's already a win. And then show me that ceiling that you can pop off for these types of games. I think we could end up kind of having an Anthony Richardson suck out in best ball world. But I don't think I'm going back for more next year.
That's
if he's expensive in any way.
We got away with it situation.
Yeah, it feels really like a guy. You can't get benched for Joe Flacco and then be in a Joe's our guy. I mean, isn't Sam Darnold's going to be here next year or someone else? They're not going to just go completely. They're not doing Tommy DeVito as the guy they're.
No, I think they are. I think that's the lesson that Flacco was too good. He was somebody he was in the playoffs last year. He's the comeback player of the year. He's always sort of knocking on the door. we have this guy over here, and the tap out sort of in a crooked sort of way kind of saved Richardson because it gave the Colts this extra added.
Was he right to tap out?
It turns out, yes. it worked out for him. Oh, okay. I didn't know what this meant to play in the NFL and be a quarterback for. Now I do. I got it. And he goes in. Maybe I'm a little bit too excited about what yesterday was based on the opponent, but on the road, last minute, that's good.
The thing is, though, is that he did not show me anything yesterday that he has not done before. It's not like he came out and completed a bunch of short crossers to Josh Downs.
Right, that's true.
He hit out the play of the game.
Pierce.
The play of the game was not even as good as the best play of week one of the. I mean, it's not like anyone's like, oh, Anthony Richardson doesn't have the arm talent. Anthony Richardson is not a great rusher. It's just all of the things together that he can't really. I'll tell you this, actually. The play of the game he made, first drive of the game, 2nd and 7. They put AD Mitchell on the field for one of his 5 routes where he's not going to get distracted by a blade of grass.
Dude, and he looks so good when he actually gets the ball.
He was kind of a little bit of pressure, and he kind of adjusted his arm angle, and he completed a 6-yard crossing, like not even a crosser, just a slant. And Mitchell got it in stride, first down. And that play, I was like, well, maybe. If he can make that play, and he also completed a 3rd and 13 to Downs where the play broke down a little bit, and his first instinct was to run, but he hung in the pocket for a second. I agree with the commenters who say that Anthony Richardson is good. The thing is, though, is Anthony Richardson, you cannot play him like he's Joe Burrow. You can't play him like he's Jared Goff. Like, you have to accept that he's going to complete like 49% of his passes because he is just going to miss throws. And it feels like the Colts organization is not happy with that deal. I don't know.
That's the part of it that has really shaken my faith in what we're getting when we draft Anthony Richardson, or invest in him in Dynasty, is that I thought that they had made that bargain and were happy with it.
Yep.
And then pretty quickly they were like, no, we would much prefer just Joe Flacco playing a little bit better than you'd expect. And then Joe Flacco played a lot worse than you'd expect. And they're like, okay, we're down to go to Richardson. And then he has a big game. But Richardson is going to be streaky as hell. This is going to go down as maybe his best game of his career.
Maybe. Really, maybe.
Yeah. So, it makes it tough. I mean, we'll obviously all have a lot more information for best ball before we have to make that decision. But, again, for Dynasty, I think this is a good day to send offers and have someone think they're getting one over on you.
You could get
in a trade.
If you really caught someone in a spot today that has trades on right now, you could get a 2025 first and like a good veteran, like a veteran who maybe you're not going to want next year, but could score points this year. Like really? I'm in a league that allows trading all the way until the Super Bowl. And if I had Richardson, I'd be like, okay, I'll take a 2025 first, Sam Darnold,
yeah.
and I don't know, a Josh Jacobsy, Chase Brown, I
think you're asking too much there. I think you get your Darnold in a first and be happy.
This had better be a 1 QB league.
No, Superflex. I'm looking at rankings right now.
All right, maybe you can ask. Maybe you can ask for more, Davis.
We finally got to a point where everything went right, and we're getting out.
I don't feel.
I'm older than you guys. I would never. I'm older than you guys. I'm just going to play it safer and start him against Detroit +8 total.
I don't think there's nothing safe about Anthony Richardson now. The safety net is gone. He has to play well going forward, or he's.
I'll ask you this:
another option, because Steichen could get fired. That's the other thing. They could bring in someone else who's like, I'm not dealing with this dude. This guy just got a coach fired.
They're going to win 4 more games. They're going to be right if they win the Denver game. Patriots, Giants, Titans, Jaguars.
Oh, the Patriots are going to beat them. I think
that would be so sweet.
Let's go.
The thing with Dynasty is you just never want to have to be right. So if they don't win 4 games, then are you holding the bag on this dude? And I think you probably are.
Doesn't he have worst case scenario? I don't want to ask that. I mean, what is his sort of min value in the offseason? Like we were talking like his career was kind of over after 10 starts.
Dude,
last week.
He could be Justin Fields, man.
Yeah,
it's
a Fields situation.
It could be Fields where he's benched for Andy Dalton next year or whoever.
I think it's like a Fields situation where they bring in a Darnold, something like that, where that's like he's still the guy, but it's very clear that he has a super short leash and no one feels comfortable investing really anything in him.
Well, if the Bears don't luck into the Carolina trade, Fields was their quarterback this year, at least at the beginning. Like, that's different with Indianapolis. I think they're not going to have they bring in a better veteran? They just kind of did that.
They might have brought in Darnold. They could have been the Darnold team.
The Bears.
Why could the Bears not have been the Darnold team?
Yeah, that's a good point.
They could have, but he wouldn't have started week one. He wouldn't have started week one. Maybe, that gets there for them, but
right.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just if there's a bunch of value still there, like if you could go get Darnold, a first, and a running back, like I'm doing that, because to me the safest asset in the deal there is the first, pretty clearly, because the first is going to have value next year. The first will be worth a first.
Year. I guess I should say it depends if it profiles as an early one or a late one, because there are a couple super blue chippers in this year's draft, like super mega, like crazy. There are no quarterbacks though. It's going to be so fun when we transition to the offseason stuff. I don't think there's going to be a quarterback who goes in the first round. I'm right now would be surprised if Cam Ward goes in the first round. Maybe Bo Nix, honestly, will change that because Bo Nix is old and playing so well. So maybe
these teams
Cam Ward
need quarterbacks so bad that I bet one does. I mean, we would have said Bo Nix and Penix, like even on the day, I didn't think Penix would go first round. He went top 10. So I don't think you're ever like taking that big of a risk to
Shadur is going to get some coach so fired, man. So Shadur, whatever Shadur, his coach, his second year of his career, bet on that guy to be the first quarterback or first coach fired, because man, is he going to get somebody fired.
There are a few teams, there always are a few teams that would be round one quarterback candidates, but so many have come out in the last couple of years, and so many teams have, including Richardson and Penix and so on, they've already sort of made their bet, and those guys are 1 or 2 years in. So I don't know how many it really is, probably 3 or 4, but not teams like, Denver or, Atlanta doing it last year. Even that was pretty crazy.
Great. Yeah. Teams have started to sell themselves on that, like the Packers with Love and everything. Right. I don't think the Falcon situation was really that comparable to that, but they do, they think it's similar enough that they did it. So, that thins out an already pretty thin pool of startable NFL quarterbacks. So I don't know, like if you're the Raiders, I guess it depends who they hire and how much leash that team feels like they have, but it can, even if you're, a really like hot name and get the head coaching job, like you can't lose for like 2 or 3 seasons. You're going to get fired. Like you have to be able to sell hope. So I don't know. If you're the Raiders, you're just like, there's such a strong incentive to draft.
Man,
somebody.
The Raiders aren't the Raiders the Shadur team. That's what's going to happen. The Raiders
and
hire Dion. They hire Dion. They take Shadur.
This is the most Raiders thing I've ever heard in my life.
That's the most Raiders thing I've ever heard, to the point that I actually want it to happen and I want it to work. I want them to win 9 games with a father and son head coach quarterback.
Please, that would be amazing.
And sign Justin Fields as the backup, so that you've got that going on too.
Oh, that sounds pretty good. Pretty good.
So just to move on from Indianapolis, which I think is where we were. So the way too early drafts on Underdog, that's a team, you guys tell me. I'm not sure. Davis, I know you have one coming up today. I haven't been in there yet because, I look at it and I'm like, oh, geez, I don't know. What are Pat and Davis or Pete going to say if I draft this and this? Like, I'm not prepared. And then the other part of my brain goes, Mike, it's $3. Really, you don't have to worry about it. You could just you could spend $3 American on one of these teams and just sort of take all your Colts, whatever it is. But what is, maybe if you have any thoughts on this, like some strategy at this point, this very early point, way too early point of playoff drafting?
People are pretty consistently the worst at this format of anything that the Dog app offers. Like no matter how much content people, not everyone, but I'd say 25 to 35% of the pool just drafts for the min cash. So like they're taking uncorrelated teams. They're taking teams that can't have 5 active for the Super Bowl. I'll say one thing I'm doing now that I'm probably not going to do when the gauntlet and the mitten pops open. I'm doing a lot of 2 quarterback teams early. Like I'm taking like Goff and Mahomes, or I'm taking Mahomes and Jaden Daniels, or Josh Allen and Jaden Daniels, or something like that. Just because there's just a lot. I mean, there's a lot of football left. It's way too early. We're 11 weeks away. There's a lot of chaos. 1 seed stuff is pretty up in the air. Like, so I'm doing more of that than I will.
That's a risk tolerance thing, I think, because
exactly
you can, you got to think what happens when the teams that I'm drafting get the bye that I didn't think we're going to get. And if you're drafting like that, then you have another quarterback who gets through. Now I would do that with, you don't want to draft those teams and have there be a realistic chance that both teams have the bye, because
the thing,
you're not mitigating risk then.
So the thing for me that is different right now is that the market is inefficient enough right now that you can still get guys in the 9th and 10th round who are going to get points in week 1, like in the wild card round. Like for example,
Pickens.
You can well, I was more thinking like teams that are Super Bowl eligible. Like you can get I don't know, Dawson Knox in round 10 or whatever, or you can get Kareem Hunt or Pirine, guys like these who are on top 4. You can get, I mean, I know he doesn't get any targets, but like you can get Tim Patrick and Khalif Raymond in round 10. You can get Kenneth Gainwell. Like you can, I mean, Gainwell probably is a bad example.
These are this year's Jawan Jennings.
Yeah.
Dallas Goedert is super cheap in these, for example.
Yeah, I mean, the other thing though with the 2 quarterback stuff is that you can, again, it's a risk tolerance thing. The other way to play it is that you go, no, I'm taking all in. I'm taking 1 quarter, and I'm betting that my Chiefs, when I draft the Chiefs onslaught, I'm betting that they don't get the bye. Everyone assumes they're getting the bye, and that this will be one of the best teams in the tournament because they don't get the bye. And that will be the way that I advance, because I have Chiefs scoring points when people didn't think they would score points, and then they go to the Super Bowl, and now I have just the absolute nuts in the Super Bowl.
The general thing is to just draft as many eligible 5-man Super Bowl rosters as possible. Like, be like, I think that is the right way to think about it.
The tip that Sacrilegious did last year that kind of changed the way I think about it, I think it was really helpful, is that try to assemble, usually with only 3 teams, not 4, but try to assemble the AFC and NFC championship games. That is, because if you have, right, because potentially you could end up in a scenario where you've got 1 AFC team and 2 NFC teams.
You get there either way.
And you get there either way. And then I also think, like, from a conceptual point, it's almost easier to think through, like, who's likely to play each other in the championship games than it is to be like who's making the Super Bowl. Because you can almost tell yourself any story about who they're going to go on some magical run and make the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
But it's almost easier to, because it's like less of a moonshot. I think you're almost more realistic about, like, okay, who's going to be in the NFC Conference Championship?
Which side is more wide open or better for like a dart throw?
NFC. There are only 3 teams that can make the Super Bowl in the AFC: the Chiefs, the Bills, and the Ravens. Wouldn't you be unbelievably floored if any of the other teams in the AFC made it?
Yeah.
Honestly, one of the other teams maybe would have been the Bengals, and now they're probably
not going to make the playoffs. They're sub 25% to make the playoffs.
What about San Francisco for this?
I'm like not taking them right now, because not only do I think like it's possible they miss, but I think they might just get blown out if they make they're terrible, man.
I think I'm still down to dabble with San Francisco.
I would be. No respect for the Steelers. So as an homage to Sam, may I contribute some truth serum?
Please.
If that's all right. I am convinced the Steelers have some way of affecting field goals in their home stadium so that all of theirs are good and all of yours are not. Some version
the reverse
of
Jerry Jones, sun in the eyes theory.
Remember the door at Giant Stadium? How it was always the rumor that somebody, when your team was kicking a field goal, they would open a door in the tunnel and the wind would. I went to a Pitt game a month ago. It was Cal Pitt, and I'm sitting there with my son, and guy next to me was great, big Pitt fan. We were just in town for one of my son's lacrosse tournaments, and the Pitt Panthers, college football, they lined up for a 60-yard field goal at Heinz Field. I'm like, buddy, this is going through. And it did. It even extends to the college team that plays in this state. Somehow, if Justin Tucker is lined up for a field goal, the third one, we can't make this too obvious. So we'll allow him to make the third one. But the first two, forget it. This is still a game. And Boswell, is anybody in the chat on the show old enough to remember a Steelers kicker missing a field goal at Heinz Field? I don't think it's ever happened.
Wasn't the turf always giving a bunch of crap there?
Sorry?
Yeah, sorry, go ahead, Davis.
Look, if the government can manipulate the weather, why can't we have magnets in the goalpost to move the football? Feels pretty simple.
Yeah, I do think those theories do sort of carry equal weight in my mind. I'll put it like that.
Right.
Yeah, the Steelers, just in looking at like Super Bowl odds and stuff, they're super low. So. They're
8-2. They've got the Browns twice. They've got the Bengals twice, for what that's worth. I mean, they're probably in pretty good shape to get to. They have a tough schedule, but 11-12 wins. If they win that division, I mean, you could have a Baltimore at Pittsburgh first round.
Right.
This would, I think, be my advice, is that it's very tempting to get fancy in these contests and be like, oh my God, think about how much equity I'm going to gain when the Chargers win the AFC. I think it's very similar to the draft games on Underdog, the 6-man drafts, where yes, you can create a ton of leverage, but you are giving up, if you think about it, you are giving up quote unquote a lot of points because of the way the implied probabilities are. Right now, the implied probabilities of the market have over 35% of the entire market generated on not making the Super Bowl, winning the Super Bowl for the Bills and the Chiefs. So then you extrapolate that out to making the Super Bowl, and you've got like, what is that? Is that 60? It's like 65% or something implied probability. So, and then on the NFC side, it's even wider on the NFC side, where the market is giving a ton of respect to the 49ers. But the 49ers have better Super Bowl odds than I think 3 teams ahead of them in the standings, Marker Tassel just said it in the chat. Playoff best ball is such an exploitable game where you can just play for the relatively common outcomes and still print, because so much of the field, maybe they're drawing live, but it's fancy. A
lot of the field is not drawing live. That's the big thing with playoff best ball, is that as it was last year, and as it probably will be this year, a lot of the field is not drafting teams that are live to win, right? They are drafting teams where they have kind of a decision, and basically they can tack on Ricky Pearsall, right? Or they can tack on Jonathan Taylor or George Pickens, and they tack on the guy who they think is going to score more points. But the problem is that that's their third or fourth AFC team. And so they're not going to get to the Super Bowl with enough players that can actually fill out a starting lineup. And in these big tournaments, that means you are dead for first. So knowing that the field is still the last data point we have on this, a lot of the field was still doing that. If you're just not doing that, then you have a big edge. And then you can build, playoff best ball is very fun, because you're telling me I can just build well-constructed versions of the most likely outcomes and I have a huge edge. Okay. I think maybe the 2027 version of this, you're going to have to go, all right, we got to start taking a little bit bigger stance on which teams are going to make the Super Bowl and be willing to take on more risks.
You know what? Great. is a great point. That is a great point that when the field is better at it, you're going to have to be like, well, actually, now it does make sense to be taking Bengals 49ers teams in these playoff contests because that is not covered by the field. But right now, Chiefs, Bills, Lions, Eagles.
Yeah, like in the future, I think you basically want to fiddle with the projections and say,
yeah,
I'm going to bet that the projections of who is making the Super Bowl are wrong in these, limited and sharp ways. That basically, I think the Bengals are going to make a run now, and I'm going to draft like the Bengals win out. And what does that do? In these tournaments, I think you could do that, but I wouldn't make that like a big part of what I'm trying to do because you're giving up your fair share of the sharp Bills, Chiefs, Lions, for whoever you like.
And none of this is even getting into player take stuff, by the way, of like, oh, there's something exploitable here where Samaje Perine is getting undrafted on Chiefs teams, but some percentage of the time when the Chiefs make the Super Bowl, Perine is playing the McKinnon snaps and scores a 13-yard touchdown or whatever. So that's before even.
That's true. That would be before even what we're saying with the Bengals. Yeah.
Yeah. That is like you before even getting into that level stuff of like, yeah, there are player take stuffs here for sure.
Yeah. Trying to middle this, then respecting like the difference drafting now and then later, a couple of teams that I want to find out what side you might be on, or even just sort of moving on from the draft part of it, just getting a sense of the outlook. The Packers at 7-3. There's another team that got away with it yesterday on a missed field goal at the end of the game. Fantasy wise, still somewhat, well, maybe not perplexing. I was going to say Christian Watson yesterday, 4 for 150, nothing from Wicks. I guess there's some correlation there. How good do you guys feel, Pat? How good do you feel about Green Bay, either in the context of the playoff stuff or just even in fantasy in general?
Green Bay is, I think, an interesting one because you can tack. There's like enough pieces. It's like a pretty deep team, and it's also wide receiver and flex pieces. One of the things with playoff best ball is you like really want your running backs tied to your quarterbacks, and like the way roster construction works is that you don't want to draft too many running backs, and therefore you don't want to burn running backs. And so you want to the teams that are more interesting to take like kind of late tack on flyers, like, oh, you know what? I'm actually going to add a fourth team in this build, a second NFC team. It would be spots where I can add wide receiver, tight end, and the Packers have Watson and Wicks, I guess, and Kraft. So they've got these like later dart throws.
They only ran 46 plays on offense yesterday.
They do seem to be a conservative. I guess that is the problem, is that they have been a pretty conservative run heavy team, even with Love. But
do you like them or Minnesota more?
Pains me to say it because I'm such a KOC Jefferson slappy, but like this is a team that is just begging to lose a home playoff game. Absolutely begging to lose a home playoff game.
I think I prefer the Packers too.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'd like the quarterback better. I think the coaching is probably pretty similar. Mm-hmm. And then in terms of playoff best ball stuff, like it's a deeper team. Like if I'm tacking on a piece a little bit later, there's a much better odds of them actually contributing, like I don't want to have to pay up for Jefferson. That's the
who is Minnesota. Sorry to move so fast on you guys. Who is Minnesota's week 1 starter next year?
Darnold.
He's on a 1-year deal. It's gonna be the Geno
thing. They brought Geno into Seattle on a 1-year deal. He played well. Did they make
I think it's McCarthy, man. I think they start McCarthy.
I think that's the year the Seahawks lost in San Francisco in the first round. Maybe.
Honestly, Pat, it just, to me, it's kind of just like what happens in the playoffs. Like imagine they win a road game against the Lions or something.
Oh, well, sure. If they beat the Lions on the road, I will change my tune. But where it stands right now, I mean, Darnold looks very much like a product of the system and the weapons.
For sure.
And they have a really good defense too. So it's not even just the offense carrying them. And they spent a first-round pick on McCarthy. As long as his knee, I know he had that second surgery, but it didn't seem like it changed the timeline. If if it doesn't look like he's going to be like fully ready to go, if he misses a big part of the offseason program, then again, I reserve the right to change my mind. But as it stands right now, I think it's probably McCarthy.
Let's get Darnold to Vegas. Does he throw to the tight end? He does. Let's get Darnold to Vegas. How about Bowers?
I mean, Bowers is with Bowers. So right now, Bowers is gonna break the record for most receptions ever for a rookie. We're doing a dynasty startup tomorrow, Superflex tight end premium. Where does Bowers is the blank non-QB. So take the quarterbacks out of it.
Third.
How high? Jefferson, Chase, Bowers?
Bowers. That's what I would do. Yep.
You could argue to me to take him over either of the wide receivers, honestly. Because, like, someone was making this point. I've been doing a bad job at remembering who makes these points on Twitter, but someone made the point that, like, the way Bowers is being used is not like Pitts being awesome as a rookie. He's just much more dominant, dude. Yeah, like
it's also much like I think for our purposes, we want the guy to be a little bit more of a PPR scam, kind of underneath. Yes. Like, just give us the consistency. At tight end, you're going to give me consistency. Like,
you're going to give me wide receiver 1 stats at tight end. Yeah, I'm taking it.
Yeah. Just like a sweet target share, on very catchable targets, and then adding yards after catch.
That's the thing, is it's not like he's just a PPR scam. He's got a 55-yard touchdown and a 35-yard touchdown already this season.
Right.
I think that's my top 3, including quarterbacks, by the way. I think that would be still my top 3.
So the quarterback market is kind of getting shaken up in Superflex, huh?
My headphones just died.
With like...
well, who is QB1 in Dynasty in Davis's draft tomorrow? Is it? I think it would be Lamar Jackson for me.
Probably Lamar. Yeah, it's probably Lamar. But it could be. I mean, I think Allen still has a case.
They both do. They're going into year 8. Daniels, much younger.
Daniels. I think the thing with Daniels is that you're not gaining that much in terms of like what the guy's going to be worth next year or the year after. You're not getting that much upside on a Lamar or an Allen, and you're still taking on a lot more risk. Like we have seen, RG3. We've seen these guys like kind of come in and on some real talent, but like I don't know. I want to see like a more sustained resume of success at the NFL level, especially for guys really skinny, takes a lot of hits, is based around his running. Lamar, we know, can do, like, you have all the same issues with Lamar, I guess, but like we know that Lamar is just a different dude. I'm still like, I would like to see more from Daniels before I just treat him like that.
Well,
so the thing with Daniels is that I don't have a ton of concerns about him running in every game. Like any random game, Lamar can just not run. You know what I'm saying? Like where Lamar will just show up and be like, well, I'm not running today because we don't need it. Like the Commanders are not that good of a team to do that, basically. Now Lamar, someone's saying in the chat, like Lamar is really good at protecting his body. Yeah, 100% true. Lamar never gets hit cleanly. Daniels, not the same. I don't know what this is about, Pat, but I'm always a little worried that Jalen Hurts is going to go to 0 at any time. I think it's because his bad games are so bad. His bad games are like, I can't imagine this guy ever being good. And then obviously he shows up the next game and is phenomenal. But like a bad Jalen Hurts game is so bad.
I think it's because like Jalen Hurts sometimes looks like he's like throwing a baseball or something.
I don't know, man.
And it's like this weird like looping thing. You're like, oh no, like this. But then he sometimes also like some of his throws look like, like you play baseball at all as a kid.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like I was always the coolest throws to me were always from the outfield with like you did the crow hop and then just like that. Yeah, he's got that going on where you're just like, oh, it's still kind of baseball-y, but it's much more aesthetically pleasing. I don't know. I don't think. What would make a huge difference? Maybe I wonder how much of your worry is actually related to like what if the tush push just went away? What if they just decide?
Oh well, if the tush push goes away, he's Daniel Jones basically. Like
he's basically Daniel Jones.
If the tush push goes away, it's a bad. Like, by the way, can you imagine? Ben Solak did that tweet last week about what has happened when Saquon Barkley got to the 1 yard line and they've all turned into Hurts touchdowns. Can you imagine if those 9 touchdowns were all Barkley touchdowns instead of Hurts? Like, what would his advance rate be if he had 9 more touchdowns?
100%, I think. You don't even need
you
other
don't
players.
even need to draft.
You didn't need to draft the other players. Just Saquon Barkley log off.
By the way, Saquon Barkley and Alvin Kamara, I mean, I cannot wait to have none of them next year. They are, you know how Barkley might actually be the first pick next year.
Yeah, I'll just fade him again.
I mean, like, can you imagine?
Pat, anything here for any what shots you want to take at my internet going out? Like, at least we're doing this show in the morning when there's not a game on. Brand. It is on brand, but there's not a game on that's like an hour behind where you're telling me, it's 21-10.
I know you got Josh Allen's touchdown run on a loop. That's probably sucking up all the bandwidth.
Yeah, that sounds like me. I will talk to Sean McDermott later today. I'll make sure not to mention anything Davis said, but that'll be on my local show later. All right, I'm good if you guys are.
Yeah.
I think there was one other thing I wanted to talk about. Oh, we do need to talk about this. Christian McCaffrey came back from the IR. Like, oh, dude, it's time. All those McCaffrey teams who are biding their time. He looks like Ezekiel Elliott, man. He's averaging 3.7 yards per carry. Is he hurt? Is it just like he's gonna be fine? He needs to get in shape. What's the I'm not like raising the alarm right now, but he's been
you called him Zeke, so
you're not.
What would it look like if you were raising the alarm?
I said he looks like Zeke, not he will look like Zeke next week. But like, are we concerned? Is it just like he's a 29-year-old running back with Achilles tendonitis? Like what? I don't know. I don't know the answer.
I haven't seen him in these 2 games, but the numbers are they that bad? Like yesterday,
he was really bad in his first week. So he had 3 yards per carry in his first game back, and rush yards over expected was atrocious. But he's at 4.2 yards per carry yesterday.
4 catches.
Yeah, and from what I saw, he looked fine. Like I wasn't. He looked McCaffrey-ish. He didn't have that like McCaffrey kind of. He goes to the line and he's like kind of like doing his little weave, and then he bursts through.
And then he bursts through.
He didn't have that last part yet, but I don't know. I felt more encouraged after yesterday. Let me pull up his rush yards over.
Davis, is Christian McCaffrey the Aaron Jones of Ezekiel Elliott's? Is that what you're saying?
That might be a good comp, actually. Yeah, that might be a good comp. But I will say this, man: if CMC is cheap next year, I'm gonna learn my lesson on the Kamara. I'm gonna learn my lesson on the Kamara thing, which is when they're giving me an old guy at a giant discount because they're expecting the cliff to come, you got to do it.
Especially if the guy catches passes. I think we'd all been burned by David Johnson so hard that like it's so hard for me to get back on board with Kamara. I'm still mad at myself for Kamara because Kamara did this to us last year.
Yeah.
And then we're like, let's price him the same and see what happens. I draft a bag. I don't know.
Connor's the same thing, right? I mean, almost the same thing.
Yeah.
Connor I got on board with. Kamara I didn't get on board with. I think it was like if he had the holdout noises. The Saints were such an atrocious organization. I was just like, I can't.
And Arizona drafted a replacement, whereas New Orleans there was no clear answer other than Kamara.
I know it was a big miss. McCaffrey had 7 rush yards over expected last week with a 44% success rate. So it was actually a decent game this past week. He just was terrible against the Bucs.
He just hasn't scored.
Right. I think he's one of those guys that'd be really psyched to advance if you get a McCaffrey team.
Oh, yeah.
Watch out. 5-5 San Francisco at Green Bay at Buffalo next 2 weeks. Fun. This has been fun. Thanks again for having me, Pat, Davis. I'm Mike Schopp. Is this where I ask you guys where people can find you? As if anybody watching ADP chasing on a Monday morning wouldn't know.
Week 11.
Week 11.
Yeah, immediately after this stream ends, it's going to go over to my channel, and I'm going to draft a bunch of these underdog, way too early playoff contests.
There's big, there's little, there's medium. Have at it. Find Davis in there. For Pat and Davis, I'm Mike Schopp. Thanks for being a part of our show today.
See you guys later.